Welcome to the Current Affairs series. We will look at some important news material of Tuesday, July 18, 2017. Let's look at the crude steel production by India during the last 3 years. The data is in front of you, just have a look at it. Now India has enough production of steel going on. That's why we are also exporting the steel after meeting domestic demand. So try to understand this. Steel is a deregulated sector in India, meaning there is no governmental restriction, no regulation. So government just acts like a facilitator with the help of policies. It creates an environment that is more productive and efficient. Now for that, the government of India has released the National Steel Policy 2017. The aim of this policy is to focus on enhancing domestic consumption, high quality steel production, and making the sector globally competitive. The National Steel Policy 2017 was passed on May 2017 by Prime Minister Modi. Let's look at some key features of this policy. Now with this policy, the Government of India aims to provide self-sufficiency to private steel manufacturers, then micro, small and medium enterprises, and to central public sector enterprises by increasing supply of domestic coking coal rather than depend on expensive import. So coking coal is one of the key inputs of the production of steel. And the second factor is, you see, steel business is an expensive business because of factors like high input cost, availability of raw materials, dependency on imports, financial stress. So this business is not cheap. Therefore, it affects many private manufacturers' potential to produce. With the help of this policy, the Government of India aims to unlock the potential of these steel manufacturers. Now what I'm going to do is, I'll show you the NSP document and quickly I'll give you an overview of this policy so that you get the gist of it. Alright, I have the document in front of me. So this is the National Steel Policy 2017. At the beginning, we have the introduction part. In this part, they talk about how steel is important to India because steel is regarded as the backbone of any nation. And it also talks about what was India's position before 1991 deregulation and what is the stand of Indian steel industry, how much it contributes to the country's GDP. So all this is there in the introduction part. Alright, let's look at the vision of NSP. Now the vision says to create a technologically advanced and globally competitive steel industry that promotes economic growth. So as I said, steel is a requirement for any nation. Every nation on this planet needs steel. So to make it more competitive, it has to be of great quality. And the quality will directly depend on the minerals. So understand the chain. So if a country produces good quality of steel, that's when the other nations are interested. So here's the mission of NSP. So as I said that the government just acts like a facilitator by making policies to improve the efficiency of this sector. So the NSP, that is National Steel Policy of 2017, it covers the following policy area. It covers the areas of demand, capacity, then raw materials, land, water and power, infrastructure and logistics, product quality, technological efficiency, then MSME sector, value addition in steel and all those kind of things. You can just pause the video and look at the areas. I'll just explain few of the points so that you get a gist of it. Now, what does the government means that NSP policy will cover the following policy areas, that is steel demand? So here's the thing, I hope you know that government has the power to create demand and supply. And it is all possible because government has the power to make law and law has to be followed by everyone. So naturally, the government has the power to create supply and demand. So how can the government create a demand in steel? Let's say the government has increased its spending in infrastructure sector. Let's say government wants to expand the railway network or shipbuilding industry, or let's say defense sector, automobile, construction industry, or maybe the government wants to build huge infrastructure in villages. So all these schemes and plans, they need steel, right? So there you go, government just created a demand. I mean, if you look at the program Make in India, what is it doing? Well, it is an initiative that is expected to witness a significant investment in construction, infrastructure, automobile, shipbuilding and power sector. So all these things is going to stimulate the steel demand. So I hope you're understanding the role of the government, how the government is helping without getting involved in the business. Now just imagine, what will the government do to increase the steel capacity? As I said, the production of steel is very important to any nation because that forms the backbone of any country. So what the government of India will do is, it's going to create warehouses, plants where the steel can be stored. It is specially done near the coastal areas because then it's easy to ship out, transport. So just think of it this way, when there is an increase in the international market for steel, then our country can supply. So just imagine how much of foreign exchange India can earn. So you see, it's a very smart strategy. Now another area is raw material. Now think about it. How can a government create a policy around raw materials? Now it is up to the government to make the availability of raw materials at competitive rate. And don't you think if the rates are good enough, that is going to boost the steel industry? Isn't that going to attract more and more private manufacturers? So you see, right, with the right policy, how can government steer the supply and demand? So that is what the government aims to do with the help of national steel policy. It does not want to get into the business of production of steel. The government is simply going to act like a facilitator by creating right policy. So this was your National Steel Policy of 2017. You can simply type about it on Google and you'll get the PDF document. You can download it and read it if you want to. But I hope you have understood the gist of it. Alright, let's look at the next headline. Disinvestment of Sail Plants. SAIL stands for Steel Authority of India Limited. So it's a government PSU. Okay, great. There are a lot of points that I'm going to use in this section, which has a direct relation to what I just spoke moments back. So whatever that I spoke about national steel policy, just keep in mind. And now what I'm going to speak about this, just try to relate and try to see whether you can make any connection or not. So in the previous current affair videos, I have informally mentioned that many governments PSUs are running in loss. PSU is basically public sector undertaking. And some of them are SAIL, that is Steel Authority of India Limited. Then we have the famous Air India. Then we have Indian Railways. Even Indian Railway is in huge debt. Then we have BSNL. Then BHEL, which is Bharat Heavy Electronics Limited. So these PSUs are causing heavy loss to the government. I think I don't need to give you a reason as to why they are in such condition. I think you know that. Okay, let me just quickly give you that reason. It's because when these PSUs were formed, at that time India was a socialist economy, meaning where the government is the owner of most of the assets in the country. Because there was a fear that capitalism works on profit basis, so they will not work towards welfare of the people. And government on the other side follows democracy, and by nature they are for the public. That's why these PSUs are crown jewels of a socialist legacy. Now, I want you to always remember this point. At the end of the day, government is just a service sector. They rely on taxes and use that to run services for the nation. They have very little way of generating profit. And plus, in a government setup, the cost of the services has to be lesser than the revenue. That's why we have 50% of manpower in all government departments. But then there are departments that create more cost, like the one I mentioned moments back. So this is also the reason why there's a delay in delivery of so many government services, and that's how we start abusing the government. I hope you understood this vicious cycle. Now, on the other hand, capitalism has capital money, which is the most important factor for any country's economic growth. So naturally, socialism is not a sustainable solution. That's why we moved from socialist economy to mixed economy. I hope everything is clear so far. Alright, so now the government of India wants to strategically disinvest 3 steel plants in India. They are Vishveshwaraya Iron and Steel Plant, which is in Bhadravati, then Salem Steel Plant, which is in Tamil Nadu, and Alloy Steel Plant in Durgapur. And again, the reason you know about it, they are causing huge loss to the government. Now, the meaning of the word disinvestment is dissolving, putting the assets on sale or maybe some part of it. But here we are talking about strategic disinvestment. That means the government wants to carefully and legally analyze, evaluate the assets and transactions, losses and debts, basically follow appropriate mechanism of disinvestment. So that is what is happening to our PSUs. Alright, let's go to the next news. Government of India has imposed anti-dumping duty on China, Korea, European Union, South Africa, Taiwan, Thailand and USA. Let's get to know about this anti-dumping duty. I have discussed about this in one of the current affair videos. I think it's in the video of July 10th, because in that I was covering one international news regarding G20. In this year's G20 summit, all the international members, they hailed India's labor reforms. So maybe in that I spoke about this anti-dumping duty. Just check the description once, you will get it. Alright, so what is this anti-dumping duty? So basically, anti-dumping is a fine that a domestic government imposes on a foreign import when it believes that this product which has come, the price of the product is below the fair market value. Okay, I'll give you an example. Let's say in India, the cost of a laptop is 20,000. So China sends a huge shipment of laptops to India. So basically India is going to import and China is exporting it. Now the cost of each laptop is 10,000. So that is very below the market price, what the domestic market in India is offering, right? So if the government of India accepts that import, then it is going to hurt the domestic market of India. Because then people are going to buy that laptop. People are not going to buy the domestic 20,000 rupees laptop. And that is when the government of India can impose anti-dumping duty on China or any foreign nation that is importing at such a low cost. Now let's try to understand the other way. Why does a country wants to export a particular product at less market value? So there could be many reasons behind it. One good reason would be, let's say maybe China has a lot of laptops in their house. They want to sell it off at a very low price so that the stocks gets moving. Or another reason is that maybe the supply is more than the demand. Let's say the people of China are not buying laptops and then there is already a huge stock of laptops ready and nobody's buying it. Then what the country does it exports it to another country at a much cheaper rate without even realizing that the country that they are exporting to, maybe their domestic market can get hurt. So this is what is anti-dumping duty. I hope you have understood this. This anti-dumping duty is part of the World Trade Organization's international trade rules. While the purpose of the World Trade Organization is to conduct free business between nations, it can only do so with some mandatory international regulation, which is anti-dumping measure. Now, you will be surprised to know what these countries are dumping in India. Or maybe I should put it this way. What is that product which made the government of India to impose anti-dumping fine on these countries? Alright, this will be a little funny. The product is cold rolled flat products of stainless steel. I mean, in the previous news headline, I told you how the government is trying hard to boost the steel industry in India. How the government wants the steel industry to be competitive. And on the other hand, if things like this happen, it's going to totally destroy the domestic market. Now, it also makes me think that when you read the news, you should always read the news in such a way that try to find the connection in between. Could it be possible that one thing happened because of another thing? And both are happening right now? If you are able to connect that, then I think your foundation and your concept becomes strong. Let's go to the next headline. The government of India have announced the sale of government stocks. So what is a government stock? Well, it's a bond that is sold by the government to finance its budget deficit. So budget deficit, the meaning of that is the difference between what it gets in taxes and what it spends. So whatever that difference of amount is, to finance that, what government does is, it sells its stock. Government bonds are usually considered to be a very safe form of investment. And these securities or these bonds are issued by RBI on behalf of the government of India. So when you buy one of these government stock, you get interest on it. And what does the government of India do with this money? They use these funds to meet their expenditures. And again, these securities and bonds have maturity date. Oh, I forgot to tell you, these securities are generally fixed maturity or fixed coupon. So once you buy this stock, you cannot sell it before that specific date. So the only risk associated with government securities is that the interest rate can fluctuate based on the market. So yeah, that was about the government bonds, securities or stock. Let's look at the next news. The central government has asked the Supreme Court for a detailed hearing on the special status granted to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Of course, not to mention, it's a sensitive and a constitutional matter. So whenever you hear about this special status of Jammu and Kashmir, immediately go back to Article 370. Article 370 of the Indian Constitution talks about the grant of special autonomous status to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So the Kashmir issue is a very old issue. So Jammu and Kashmir was a princely state before independence. On October 1947, the Hindu king who was the ruler of J&K, Maharaja Hari Singh, he signed that legal document, that is instrument of accession, and after signing that, Jammu and Kashmir became part of India. So if I have to broadly divide the state of Jammu and Kashmir, it can be easily remembered this way. It is divided into three sections. One is the Hindu dominated region, the other one is the Muslim dominated region, and the Ladakh region is full of Buddhist. Now on the northwestern frontier, that area, the area of Gilgit, it is under the control of Pakistan Authority. And to the northeastern side, the area of Aksai Chin, that is under the control of China. And the remaining region, you can see it in this map. Now, if you look at this map, this region over here, now this region is dominated by Muslim population. And if you see, it is also closer to the troubled country, which is Pakistan. Now, because of this Muslim population in Kashmir, Pakistan wants to add this region to its own country. So basically, Pakistan wants Kashmir. And I think you can easily figure out, looking at this geographical location, why Pakistan is interested in having that portion. Now that brings us to the most important question. Why was Article 370 inserted in the constitution? So the possible reason, or let's say the answer to that question, is a lot of the land portion in Kashmir is under the control of China and Pakistan. I'm talking about the places like Aksai Chin and Gilgit. So during the time of national integration, when all the princely states started joining the union, at that time Jammu and Kashmir was not ready for integration. Because at that time the situation was very delicate and sensitive due to partition. So any sort of forceful attitude would actually ignite the rebellious attitude within the people. Because the British rule had just gotten over and people still had that emotion, fear and anger in their mind. So any kind of a force would have ignited that rebellious sentiment. Due to that, Article 370 came into existence. So when Article 370 was constituted or drafted, during that time the people who were drafting it, the so-called our forefathers, they had a vision that maybe one day, with the will of the Kashmiri people, it would no longer require a separate constitution. It would be a part of the Indian constitution. But then ironically, that day hasn't arrived yet. So till now, no government has thought of doing a sensible debate over this issue. And I think right now the center really wants that kind of a debate to happen. Of course, there's a more story associated with this issue. I just gave you an overview of it. There's a much more elaborate and in-depth detail about it. I think I'll do that in some other video with an elaborate sense of understanding. So yeah, that was the Kashmir issue. And these were the important current affair materials that I've found in the news of Tuesday, July 18, 2017. Keep an eye on the description of these videos for any repeating news. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. As usual, thanks for watching and I'll see you tomorrow.